Welcome to Impact Makers Radio, featuring industry thought leaders sharing problem-solving insights to help grow your business and live the life you love. And here's your host, Stewart Andrew Alexander.
Hi, and welcome to another Let's Talk Divorce conversation. And on this segment of the show, I have family law attorney Scott Kramer of Griffin McCarthy Rice LLP calling in all the way from good old sunny Chicago, Illinois. Now, Scott, who has a wealth of experience in the area of family law, will be talking to you today about ensuring that emotions don't prohibit your ability to make rational decisions. So, if you are one of the many divorcing couples in the Chicago, Illinois area who can relate to today's topic, it might be a good idea for you just to, down tools, give yourself a break, log out of Facebook, stop the Twittering and Instagramming. You might even want to grab a notepad and pen and take some notes as we listen in to what Scott has to share with us today. So with that said, let's not keep him waiting any longer. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Thank you so much for having me, Stuart.
You are so welcome. We know how busy you are over there, so let's just jump feet first in. Briefly, in your own words, describe the kinds of people who you serve and the various types of situations they find themselves in when they come to you for your help.
So my primary area of practice, Stuart, is divorce law, which ultimately means that the people coming to see me are either looking for a divorce, considering divorce, in the middle of a divorce, or potentially they've been divorced already, but there's certain changes that they want to their divorce decree. I think the challenge for a lot of these clients when we're meeting for the first time is that they're being faced with one of the bigger financial and or emotional decisions that they've experienced up to date in their life. And they're going to be asked to make these very large decisions at a time and in a place where the stresses on them couldn't be greater. And that's really where the value of a good attorney comes in.
Okay, so now that we know who we are talking to today, before we go any further, it must be said that anything what you share with us from this point on then, Scott, is not legal advice or legal assistance. It's purely for the purpose of sharing information. Now, with that said, I am absolutely sure that while you're out there helping these people who you help, that you come across many common misconceptions. Now, of all the misconceptions that you come across on a regular basis, what's the most common one that you have to deal with?
That's a great question, Stuart. I think one of the most common misconceptions is one that might not even go stated, but one that is running underneath each and every client that I meet with. And it's the misconception that the emotions that they're feeling, that if and when they're presented with the opportunity to make their arguments to a court, that a court is going to validate those emotions. And that when the court makes decisions, whether it be on financial or child-related matters, that their day in court will be their ultimate day of vindication. And I think that underlying emotion really can be a pitfall, so to speak, depending on the client and the issue.
Okay, so based on what you just shared with us, Scott, and obviously keeping your client's confidentiality in mind, please share an example of how you would help somebody who comes to you with that challenge, that misconception you just mentioned, and what kind of transformational results you'd be able to gain for them.
Patience is a virtue in this field, really on both sides, both for the attorney and for the client. And oftentimes, because people are coming in that emotional state, the desire for immediate vindication, so to speak, or immediate results might be ever present, even though the strategy might require otherwise. So let me give you an example that is a common theme that you could probably reiterate across different examples. Take a case with spouse A and spouse B.
Mm-hmm.
They have 3 kids. Spouse A has a very recent and severe history of drug and alcohol addiction. She is out of rehab for 1 week and comes into my office explaining to me how she will never do drugs and never drink again, and that spouse B, her husband, is to blame, that his anger, his emotional abuse, that he was the primary driver. And now that they're no longer living together, that no one has any need to worry about her drug and alcohol usage. And the question before the court, and or the question that she would like resolved, is how to allocate parenting time for their child. And her statement to me is, it's his fault. I'm as clean as can be for a week, and we should move immediately to make sure that I am vindicated and that I have the children nearly the entirety of the available time. Take that example, as you can imagine, sort of emotions running at peak, and I'm hearing one side of the story. The best thing I could do as her attorney, as spouse A's attorney, is I need to be able to step back from the emotion that she's feeling. I need to be able to see the entire picture and try to get a sense of what a court might do in that situation and what the best steps are moving forward that balances the needs that she has, but also recognizes the challenges that she faces. And so in this situation, getting back to the theme of not letting your emotions getting in the way of making rational decisions, we'd have a very real conversation about the best timing to make her argument. In other words, not that her concerns aren't real, not that she may have one role to play in the problems that she's experienced and her spouse might have another, but that the timing of her pursuit of her argument, that maybe it might be best, instead of 7 days removed from being in a rehabilitation center, that we have a discussion of making sure that she has her feet a little firmer under her before moving forward. And I think that concept of your emotions wanting you to make that argument, the vitriol that we see in these divorce cases where the feelings between spouses are so intense, and us as lawyers being able to look from above and make sure that we're not letting that emotion dictate the pace or the argument that's made is very critical.
As a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, my guest today is family law attorney Scott Kramer, and our topic is ensuring that emotions don't prohibit your ability to make a rational decision. Now, with that in mind then, Scott, and for those divorcing couples who are out there and wanting to know more, what's the most common but unknown pitfall that they need to avoid regardless of what situation they find themselves in?
I think there's a couple that apply pretty directly to this situation. The first that I'm very clear to let everyone know is that while their emotions fade, while the intensity of the feelings that they have at that moment will eventually go away when the divorce is over, the financial ruin that they stand to cause themselves by letting their emotions get in the way of making a rational decision could leave a more permanent mark. And my goal then is to always make sure that I have my eye on that second part of the equation, making sure that we're doing the best thing we can do for their stability of their financial future, and making sure that the emotion doesn't get in the way of making a decision that will leave them financially stable.
Okay, Scott, so how many years have you actually been practicing family law?
I've been practicing family law, Stewart, for about 7 years now.
So would it be safe to say that within a 7-year span you've helped maybe hundreds of people?
That would be safe to say. At least I hope that I have helped that many.
Right, I'm pretty sure. And
some of them might disagree.
Well,
if I'm doing my job right, a couple of them still like me.
I'm sure you've been doing a fantastic job. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on the show because we've checked you out. We've checked you out before. So, anyway, let me just ask you this: imagine that it's any given day of the week. And you wake up in the morning, your alarm clock goes off, maybe it's 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, whatever the time may be in your part of the world. And you have a full day's work ahead of you helping those divorcing couples, those people who find themselves in that unfortunate position of facing a divorce. Even after 7 years and helping, allegedly, hundreds of people, how do you feel on a day like that, Scott?
I think my proudest feelings come when I'm able to work with that individual who may have walked into my office leaning very heavily on their emotions and their decision making. And by the end of that process, that by virtue of our partnership together, we're able to get to a place where our decision making is driven by the cost-benefit analysis of that decision and rationality over emotion. And it's a really amazing feeling when you get to that place, because at the end of the day, while the emotions are raw at the beginning, the end of a client's case is a transaction. And if I can get them to the conclusion of that transaction in a way where their emotions allowed them to keep their dignity and keep their costs down, it is one of the more validating feelings that I think you can find in the profession of law.
You know something, Scott? One of my best friends, he's happily married. However, after listening to you, I'm going to recommend to him that he files for divorce just so that he can be your client. How does that sound?
Well, if sticking with my theme, if he stayed rational, he'd probably leave my office very quickly and go back to his loving spouse.
Yeah, but seriously, the point what I'm trying to get over is it's evident that you love what you do. I can just feel that true, genuine passion for helping the people who you help on a day-to-day basis, and we're just so happy that you were able to come on the show. So let's find out a little bit more about yourself then. Let's just talk a little bit about your background and your formal education and your experience as it relates to the topic of family law. So if you could just spend a few moments sharing that information so that the listener can get to know more about Scott Kramer. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Stewart. I am a proud graduate of the University of Michigan. I met my amazing wife, Pammy, there during my senior year. We've been happily married for actually almost to the T, the duration of time that I've been practicing at my current firm. Let me tell you, Stuart, there is nothing like telling your father-in-law just a few days in advance of your wedding that you just left your cushy big firm job to become a divorce lawyer.
I bet that went down well.
Quite a way to kick off nuptials. But I have been actually, since a couple of months after that wedding, I have been at the same family law firm now, Griffin McCarthy Rice, since 2010. Mm-hmm. And I'm very blessed to practice here because the type of family law we practice is very consistent with the tip that we've been talking about during this segment, and that the sort of old school divorce model in Illinois would just say that if you're going to get divorced and you meet a client, well, you just file for divorce. What we do here is very much talk to our clients about how they want to get divorced, because we are blessed in this day and age to not just be limited to the courthouse, but that people can choose alternative methods, alternative processes for getting divorced, whether that be a private mediation that keeps their divorce proceedings confidential, or a collaborative divorce, which is a separate procedure apart from mediation and apart from litigation, wherein a team approach is taken with opportunities that multidisciplinary influences, such as having a mental health professional perhaps gauge or navigate that component of your divorce, and or a financial neutral to provide a neutral financial advisor to help navigate the financial nuances of your arrangement. That decision from the get-go of how to get divorced, in my mind, is that first step in taking control over ensuring that your rational decision governs over your emotion, that you think deeply about what you're looking for out of your divorce, and we come up with the best game plan of how to get from point A to point B. And I have been blessed to work with some of the most experienced professionals in that field and get to see a variety of approaches, such that I'm now in a very unique position to help people with that question of how. And it empowers people to get divorced in a way that they can feel good about. And then when it's over, that in the perfect circumstances, in the right cases, they can even maintain a good relationship with their spouse when it's all said and done.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Scott. So if you could then, Scott, just picture the kinds of people who you help, those divorcing couples who come to you for your guidance, and they want to know more about, how to ensure that their emotions don't prohibit their ability to make rational decisions. With that picture in mind, Scott, what final thoughts would you like to share with them before we close out with our last question for today?
I think I'd leave them with two thoughts. The first would be not to be afraid to get outside help, not to be ashamed to have the assistance of a therapist or a counselor, that people in the mental health profession are very much critical components of managing your divorce effectively and shouldn't hesitate to utilize their services. And I think the second would be, whether it's me or someone else, that the lawyer they look for should be a lawyer that they feel comfortable is being not just their lawyer, but truly providing them counsel in the truest sense of the word. And what I mean by that is getting a sense that there's a lawyer sitting there that's not just validating their emotions, not just feeding off of the hurt that they may be feeling, but a lawyer that in their words and in their advice seems to be thinking above the hurt and making proactive recommendations about how their divorce could proceed in the most effective way possible for them.
So, Scott, if there is somebody out there who feels they want to know more about what we've been speaking about today, that is ensuring that their emotions don't prohibit their ability to make rational decisions, what's the easiest way for them to connect with you? Where would they find you?
The easiest way to find me, Stewart, is directly by email. We have a website for our law firm. It's gmrfamilylaw.com. That's one word, gmrfamilylaw.com. You'll find a little snapshot of me there along with a link to my email address. And my email is skramer, Kramer, at gmrfamilylaw.com. And I'm always happy to talk to folks who, whether they're considering divorce or just want to understand what their rights would be, even those preliminary conversations can be very effective and instructive for people.
Okay, so whether you're out there, maybe you're cruising down the highway and you're tuning in, or maybe you're out for a walk and you're listening on your personal headset, or you might be in the gym tuning in also on your personal device. Whatever the case may be, that's all we have time for today. Again, my guest today was family law attorney Scott Kramer. Thank you so much for sharing so generously with us today, Scott. You have certainly demonstrated that you are a true educator and advocate for your client's success. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Stewart. Take care.
Yes, you take care as well. You are so welcome. You've been a great guest. And even more importantly, Scott, I'd like to say a big thank you to the listener. Because without the listener, we wouldn't have had anybody to speak to today. So thank you for joining us on this very insightful and informative discussion with one of the top family law attorneys in the Chicago, Illinois area today. Again, his name is Scott Kramer. Make sure you do check him out. Go and visit his website, send him an email, give him a call, whatever the case may be. I'm sure that you're going to be in the right place to get started. So that's it, folks. Again, my name is Stewart Andrew Alexander, and we'll be back shortly with some more leading family law professionals in this, our series of Let's Talk Divorce Conversations. So, until then, take care, have a great day, and we'll talk real soon.
Thank you for tuning in to Impact Makers Radio. To listen to all past, present and future industry thought leaders and trendsetters, visit us at impactmakersradio.com.